This is the Kiwi Ears Singolo, and upon first try, my ears immediately pointed to the Kiwi Ears Aether having a similar tuning. For context, the Singolo prioritizes detail over energy, technical sound over fun. However, this to me is not a drawback, as I see this as a really good option for audio professionals, and I will go over this in more detail later on. Hi, I'm Daniel with the Biboyharanero team. We review gaming peripherals like mice, keyboards, and audio gear. Consider subscribing so you're always updated with our new video releases and product updates. Now, back to the Singolo. This was a collaboration between Kiwi Ears and Crinacle, which is one of the most influential personalities in the audio world. The Singolo has one 11mm dynamic driver in its housing that features the so-called patented Kiwi Ears acoustic resonance system. If you look deep into the IEM, you will see some tubes inside that regulate bass response. Not to the point that it loses bass, but to the point where it gets controlled more for an airy tuning in the headset. Those tubes, by the way, terminate to a vent, which I think looks really cool and very innovative because you don't get to see this on any other IEM. A while back, I compared this to the Kiwi Ears Aether that has a very wide soundstage and a very airy tuning to it. Right this very moment, I'm using the Singolo to monitor my voice as I record this voiceover. Later, I will go over more specific details on its sound profile, the way my ears hear them. But before that, this has a frequency response of 20Hz to 20 kHz, an impedance of 32 ohms, so it's not too difficult to drive, a sensitivity rating of 108 decibel sound pressure level, and with that out of the way, let's move over to build. Inside the box, you get the cable, IEM, and 2 sets of ear tips with 3 pairs each. Very straightforward and nothing out of the ordinary. This is a budget set, so I do highly understand if there is no carrying case included. The housing of the IEM is made of high quality resin and does not feel plasticky, unlike many other IEMs out there at this price range. Build quality of the shell is one of the greatest contributors to the sound profile that not a lot of tech reviewers talk about. Most of the time, a plastic shell with hollow insides may affect bass response or even trebles. Just saying. The housing isn't too big, and it's just about right for average-sized ears. In fact, I think I might even categorize this as below average in size. The faceplate is the usual with Kiwi Ears sets. You get a glittery look with some cloudy colors, along with the Kiwi Ears branding. As for the nozzle, it is relatively short, which affects the way it seals in my ears. I personally prefer a longer nozzle, so it goes all the way in my ear, but in this case, it doesn't. And given the ear tips included, they too aren't tall, which makes a very shallow seal. Now, when talking about seal, this is where I struggled with the Singolo. I had to tip roll time and time again just to find the perfect seal. And though I haven't found it yet, the best sound profile that I've experienced is the one with my wide bore tips. Speaking about wide bore tips, the stock ear tips that you get with this set seems like semi-wide bore tips. The sound holes, or whatever you call them, are relatively bigger than average. The bigger that hole becomes, the better treble response and more controlled the bass. On paper, this improves detail, but many factors also have to be considered. The cable looks really good for a budget IEM. I think this silver-colored cable with a right-angled 3.5mm termination is a good plus. Overall, I find really good value from this set in terms of build, and I should say the same in terms of sound, so let's go over that here real quick. The sound on the Singolo is really special in a way that it does not sound a lot like IEMs that you get in the market. To begin with, I think it's important for me to mention that I am not treble sensitive and I do not like bassy tunings except for gaming. Also, during my tests, the best seal that I found is with my wide bore tips, so this affected the sound, improving the detail while tuning down the low ends. So please keep that in mind and take whatever I say with a grain of salt. Now, with that out of the way, the Singolo has a very controlled bass response. It does have a V-shaped tuning with more emphasis on the highs, but to me, it isn't bothering, and it may be an issue though for treble sensitive users. Very occasionally would I hear some spark or shine in the trebles that may be uncomfortable for some users. Not for me. As a treble immune human being, this was perfectly fine for me. In fact, this is the kind of tuning I would use for vocal monitoring. But of course, more on this regarding professional audio in the next segment. The mids are most of the time present, but at some times, I feel like they get drowned by the sparks from the treble. I'm speaking mostly about the 2K to 4K hertz. I listen to a lot of busy country music and notice that sometimes the vocals just aren't forward in the mix. And this is the same thing that I've noticed with Chad Kroger's voice in Nickelback songs, where I would occasionally wish I could hear his voice more. And I found that boosting 2K hertz for about 3 decibels improves the overall mid response of the set with regards to improving vocals. The low mids never get drowned out by the bass, and this is all thanks to the acoustic resonance system built with within the housing of the set. As I said a while back, this helps with controlling the bass response and regulating the punch and rumbles. As a result, you get low mids that never get drowned out in the mix. As for the low end, this is definitely not for bass heads, as I think the bass lacks a bit of texture and attack. The rumbles are there, and so are the punches, but again, not at the level that one would deem is suitable for bass lovers. It sounds very highly critical and may sound dull to the average ear. Some treble-sensitive users might even experience some discomfort. I wouldn't recommend this set for beginners, as I envision beginners to want more bass response, as this is how everyone starts in the hobby. Good bass means good sound, but this is not the case all the time. Anyways, let's go over my take on the Singolo as an audio professional. As a brief background, I've been mixing audio for nearly a decade now. Even before I was a YouTuber, I was already covering songs and layering instruments. This was before the copyright strike issues began on YouTube, which forced me to take down all song covers that I've ever created. In my journey recording my own voice and mixing audio, I found that good bass response where rumbles and punch easily cut through the mix is something I wouldn't want or wouldn't even recommend for vocal monitoring. It's both a hit and miss for audio mixing, and I believe is highly dependent on user preference. But when monitoring your vocals, this may potentially sound fatiguing, especially when you use your mic really closely to your mouth. When monitoring your vocals, you would want an open, natural sounding, a bit airy tuned monitors, which is why I recommend open back headsets or something like the Kiwi Ears Septet with an open back design. Many years ago, most IEMs have boosted bass because the perception of the market is that better bass is equal to better sound, and I'm glad that the market is changing and that Kiwi Ears here is serving those people in need for a more clinical tuned IEM for a fraction of the price of the usual clinical tuned sets that you can get in the market. Overall, I would highly recommend the Singolo for non-bass lovers and to those who aren't treble sensitive. If you do voiceovers, song covers, or any kind of recording where monitoring is a must, I highly recommend this set as well. I wouldn't entirely recommend this for bassists, drummers, or gamers, as you would want a little bit more low end in the tuning if you decide to use this for games such as FPS titles, to be precise. But for open world games where footsteps really isn't a priority, this will do the job just fine. In fact, it may just project the environment sounds as more realistic, having an airy sound signature. Now, I think all that needs to be said has been said, but I'm pretty sure I missed out on a detail here and there, so let me know if you have any questions through the comment section down below. I will leave links down in the description on where to get your Kiwi Ears Singolo, and I will see you guys again next time. Do not forget to subscribe.